first and foremost, introductions. I myself, my name is Alex, I'm the Director of Asian Pacific Islander Affairs. And helping me today, and also who's helped me draft this forum for you all is Kayla Tran. She's also the president of the Asian American Student Union. We would definitely like to start off by saying thank you for coming. I know we might be the only thing standing between you and spring break, right? So, we want to have a good, meaningful discussion, and then, you all can, maybe some of you have classes, maybe some of you are getting ready to head out of town, so, we definitely want to wish you a safe journey, travel, and safe week. A couple of things to acknowledge. This conversation is generally not easy, because for a lot of different feelings, a lot of insecurities, personal attachments, fears. But I want to encourage you all today because we have some outstanding, and we're very thankful for the various faculty and staff, that have come here. We definitely have Mary Kay, over with Student Affairs. We have Dave Kratzer, Vice President of Student Affairs, here with us today. We also have Officer Castronova, who I've been talking to and coordinating with UFPD. They're going to be sharing a little bit of their insights into the situation, what UF and what UFPD is doing about this, so that you all know. But this is your opportunity. I think a lot of times with Asian American communities, we feel like we're not being heard. And sometimes that's either maybe because we're not speaking loud enough, maybe sometimes on the other end other people aren't listening, but today you can speak as loud as you want. We're listening. I think all of us are, even your peers. So regardless of what it may be, how you feel, let's please respect everybody's perspectives. Everybody comes from a different vantage point on this. It's not to label you as right or wrong. It's just so that we can get a grasp of what your reaction is to this incident, what it is that we need to do as, the Asian American Student Union, API Affairs, and the University of Florida to move forward positively from this. So I ask you to speak your mind in whatever that may be. Don't get caught up on whether or not I know enough about something or not. We're here to kind of share both in that what we understand and what also we don't understand. Allow yourself to not feel ashamed for what you feel. A lot of times we question ourselves, why am I so angry, or why don't I care, why am I so confused? Accept that you are. And allow your perspective and your own personal experiences to be the highlight to give foundation that you have a right to be feeling whatever it is that you're feeling. And finally, you remind yourself that incidents like these, they're hurtful. They cause wounds in various communities, individually, in large groups. And I think, it's definitely inspiring, but some of you may have seen, we've definitely gotten shout outs from all these different UC schools voicing their support for us. So other communities that aren't even here in UF are hurting for us and with us. So talk about it, share it. This is really more for your benefit to share and tell everybody, tell all of us what's going on in your world, how do you feel about this, and we're going to try our best to record it, and we're going to try to take those comments and suggestions and try to field ways to act in a manner that that best suits the need for the community and helps you come back from this in a positive way. So with that said, I think Kayla's going to kind of start off and go over kind of like what's been happening since this. We want concrete facts and information, so we're just going to start out where it began and then where we are now. So.
And given a rough timeline, on the 26th, so a few days ago, there was initial signing of flyers. A lot of people posted on Facebook as well as Instagram, whether that be to inform others or actually to make a debacle out of it and laugh about it. And then, so student ambassadors notified Alex and the rest of the API Affairs office accordingly around 3:30. And then that's whenever his staff and his office went around campus, found them at a variety of locations like Carlton, Weimar, and Burlington. And then around 6 p.m. is that whenever Alex and I released personal statements ourselves. And then from then after, we moved really quickly, as you can see. And then at 6:15, that's whenever Alex met with Sergeant Colson and Officer Silver to file an actual formal complaint. And then around 8 p.m., that's whenever that's whenever things really took off. Whenever API Affairs released a statement on their actual website, and the traffic on the website got 4,000 hits. And that's incredible. That's more than we ever expected, and that's through the power of social media. So, I didn't believe or understand the power of social media until like it happened here on campus. And then that's whenever Alex, the next morning, Alex contacted the API Advisory Board and Bert, and then that's whenever he had a staff meeting with all of his ambassadors. And then, if you guys have heard about it, there have been 2 anonymous emails that have apologized to Alex, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. But the first one was at 1:41 p.m. and then the other one was at the nighttime at 8 p.m. Other things that happened is, if you know about the popular national blog Angry Asian Man, Alex submitted information about it, and that's whenever, just because of the national platform that he has, that's how we gained a lot of leverage from that. Also, with us today is Dave Crafter, and Alex had spoken with him yesterday at 4 p.m., and we're really grateful that he has made time for us today, as you guys can see. And then the Alligator actually contacted us yesterday and got some statements from Alex and a few other students, and their article was released this morning, if you guys have caught the paper on the front news. And thank you again for coming, and that's where we're at today, 12:50, with our forum.
So I'm sure all of you have seen this. It was brought to my attention. Andrew had shown me like an image from his phone, and this is what we found. And I know I had heard at that time that some of the students were already out trying to find more of these flyers. And if you can't read, I know it's maybe a little bit fuzzy, but it does say, "No need dog, need cash now, cash for dog, we pay up to $50, Happy Fortune buffet," and then it has a phone number in. And if you try to call that number, it's actually a prank line. So this is kind of, a lot of people were very questionable, like kind of confused by this in the early shock of it. But then as it kind of waged forward, there was a lot more angry sentiment, confusion. So I want to spend a lot more time talking and listening from you all about what were some of your reactions. How did you feel about seeing this? Anybody can start?
Nancy?
I come from a Chinese background, and we did own a restaurant as well, so this really hit home with me, very personally. And I actually saw one of these in the Wright's elevator, so you could put that down too. But when I saw it, I took it and I threw it away. And it makes me feel kind of guilty now that we're talking so much about it here, that I didn't go and talk to you guys about it, because I just saw it and I threw it away. So, yeah.
That's okay. That's okay.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Emily?
Growing up, I can't even count how many times someone's made the dog comment to me. Like, all throughout grade school to almost like high school, I've had kids come up to me and it's like, "Have you ever tried a dog before? Have you ate it before?" It's like, I own 2 dogs. And so for me to see this, now that we're in college and supposedly full-grown adults, it's like, it's kind of eye-opening to see that the ignorance is still there, and that people still don't go to the eyes to realize that it's not right, it's not funny, and it brings back a lot of like hurtful memories.
Yeah, thank you.
We're talking about reactions, right?
Yeah, so you...
Reactions? Okay, so my first reaction was like, I think the way I handle racism is I kind of like brush it off and ignore it, and I didn't think that it was that big of a deal, like personally. But especially just right after now hearing like Nancy and Emily speak, it just like makes me want to cry, because like the way I do things, I ignore it, and now like I want to cry because like I guess it's like kind of repressing it. So now like I see like what a big deal it is, because it does have an effect, and I kind of just repress it and ignore it. But I think it's really good that we're like taking action so fast and like speaking out right now and realizing and bringing awareness that it is a really big deal, because it does offend and hurt a lot of people. And also, since we're reacting in like a huge way and making sure that doesn't happen again, hopefully that it doesn't happen again, because now there are consequences.
I think Melissa, you had your hand up.
Yeah. When I saw it, I just kind of scanned my Facebook newsfeed, and like at first I thought it was one of those like funny meme things And so I didn't even like really look at it until I saw like, oh, it has so many likes, and I was like, oh, what is this? And I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is something that's happening on our campus, and like it kind of just bothers me, like who would take the time out of their day to think this is funny and like okay to do? I was honestly like really outraged. Like I see this like a lot, like kind of like poking fun at like Asians or even like other races online and like memes and stuff, but like it really bothered me because it's kind of like it never really affected myself, or I mean like it never happened in my personal life. But then just seeing this, it shows a lot of ignorance and like arrogance, like how, I don't know, it's just like really like messed up how people think this is okay. And I don't think that like even if they apologize, like it's not, it's already affected us, and it's something that we need to like open up about and make sure like we get heard and our point comes across.
For me, when I first saw it, I'm not gonna lie, I was really, really aggravated. And like Lisa said, like I was pretty outraged by it because, you know, like bringing it back to what Emily said, it affected us, all of us growing up. You know, our peers would say, hey, have you ever checked eating dog? Or have you ever had dog? And you know, that's, you know, the horror of a single story area, that people continually stereotype us by saying that all Asians eat dog. And we always see, you know, these type of things happen on other campuses, and to see that it happening on our own campus is just something that's like unfathomable. Because we always say that, you know, a lot of people feel like racism isn't out there, but it's here. You know, it might not be in your face, but it's in everybody's minds. And, well, not everybody, but everybody knows what I mean, right? That it's still in people's minds. And the fact that someone took their time to think this is funny and that it won't offend anybody is completely wrong. Because by going around campus and putting up these flyers, you are affecting a huge student body. And it just goes to show, like, not only is this affecting the Asian American APIA community, but what if, you know, individuals like this don't get educated, and then other people feel like they can do something like this too, and then it goes on and affects, you know, the Black community, the Hispanic community, affecting other identities as well. So I'm just really glad that we were able to act so quickly and we're able to have an open discussion where we could talk about this issue, because if we don't address it now, it's going to just spread across campus.
I think you know, I want to highlight a point that you made. It makes you wonder, like, it's there, right? In an instance like these, it's like you can no longer ignore, like, when you look at people around you, were you the one that did it? Were you the one that did it? Or are you even thinking stuff like that? You know what I mean? I think that kind of idea makes you wonder, like, am I in a safe place? Are they laughing at me behind my back as I'm walking away, or whether I'm in class? So, you know, thank you for sharing that.
My initial reaction when I saw this was just fear. And I know that sounds like strange because, I mean, I guess technically my very initial reaction was anger, but then the complete lack of surprise that something like this still continues to exist and on our own very campus made me realize the fear is that what this is going to do is divide the UF community. And the appropriate response of which I believe that we took happened as I expected it to happen, but the problem is that it's kind of like when you try to have an open discussion, the more you point to things that go against someone's belief, the more that person holds on to their own ignorant belief. And it's going to be this thing where people are like, oh, you know, I mean, and then obviously the criticism that people are being oversensitive will get thrown around. And I don't think anybody's initial angry reaction to this, especially being Asian, is that we're being oversensitive. Like, no, we're not. We're not being overly sensitive. This is our culture, and it's being attacked. And just the fact that someone can take the actual effort to create it and then go around and spread it, to use our culture as a butt of a joke, just goes to belie a certain privilege. And those with the privilege to do it are going to express it, and those who, you know, may have a belief, I believe that the people, you know, who might think these things, or who might, you know, the ones who might think that we're being overly sensitive, they're not the ones participating in the discussion. They're going to stick fast to their beliefs, and then we're going to obviously be challenging those beliefs because they're wrong. And so, like, the problem is, and I want to thank you personally, Beatrice, for being here, and for you too. I'm sorry for your title and position, but yeah, like, I think that the biggest step is that people in their positions, people who aren't maybe necessarily obviously attached to our community. So when things like this, or when things like blackface occur, it's not just those who would stereotypically or like intimately be linked, because obviously we, the Asian API community, we're being affected by this. Obviously we have a response, but I think going forward, in terms of like what needs to happen, is a UF takes a stance against this, because it obviously affects everyone, not just API community.
Go ahead.
My initial reaction was a little bit different than everyone else's. When I saw the flyer, actually it made me feel uneducated, because like I think stereotypes are wrong in general, but I didn't understand like why people were so offended to the extent that they were, because like I'm not part of the Asian community. So like what I did is like I started to do research, and I like looked up like the stereotype of eating dogs and cats, and there is a market for that in like not just in Asian countries either. Like they eat it in South America too. So what I did was I asked my sorority sisters who are Asian, and they explained it to me that it's not just the restaurant like that's not a stereotype, but like the restaurant things. A lot of their parents like own restaurants, like a lot of other people who are sitting here. But it's also the fact that there's broken English, and it perpetuates the stereotype that Asian Americans are perpetual foreigners and they're not adequate. And I know, like, I help as an ESOL mentor, and I felt like really bad when I started to think about it. Like, I wondered if that's how my students feel, like they are just not adequate when there's people who think like this and think that's how they speak, and like I just felt like really like uneducated. So like, I'm kind of like not necessarily glad, but like that it brought attention to this issue, and it's helping not just like non-minorities get involved, but like other minority groups like get educated about like what goes on in these other groups that you may not know about.
And the next question.
Or did Andrew want to share?
For me, like I want to echo off like what everyone said. Like when I first saw this, like I felt confused, and then I felt angry, and I felt like a mix of emotions. And I think for me, it just solidified how unsafe I felt this week, and sometimes in general walking around campus. Because for me, like when I wake up, it's like I have so many identities, and I always have to look in the mirror. And I'm like, I'm Asian American, and to walk onto campus and see this, just really made me feel, even more self-conscious about my racial identity. Having to completely always be on the defensive. And for me, it hit personally at home, because my parents used to own a restaurant. There's one time with my older sister, we were listening to the radio, and this guy, our favorite station, it used to be our favorite station, and they called my dad, apparently, and he picked up. It was a prank call. I'm like, oh my God, that's Dad. They prank called my dad and was like, why did you steal my dog? Why did you steal my dog? And they, just kept on making these really offensive jokes to my dad, and he was really confused, and he hung up. And we recorded it and we showed it to my dad, and we just didn't, we were like, oh, you're on the radio, and he immediately got embarrassed, and we didn't realize what that meant, because we were so young. And I think today, like, I'm better at, articulating how I feel about that. It's that, being ashamed and not being able to recognize like that anger, and like, always having to tell your children, like, you don't need to speak up. It's okay. Don't cause commotion. We need to like be safe. We're here in the U.S. It's an immigrants. It's safer to be quiet about it. And I think like I'm tired of feeling quiet about these like my feelings, and it's just so many things, like being called chink like this weekend, like being harassed on the street. That happened to me this weekend, and so I think that it took me a while. This was in Gainesville too, off campus, and luckily I was safe. But there's just so many emotions that I felt this week, and seeing this flyer just made me even angrier. And not to say like we're gonna stop here. We need to do something about this, because either people are ignorant, or they're not educated, or they don't want to be educated. We need to work together and really educate everyone in our communities, because this like everyone said, this affects everyone. It makes this well, it affects me, it affects you, like it affects everyone, and we're not getting anywhere when we don't share this, when we don't talk about it, when we think it's, you know, it's just a flyer, and it's just a joke. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and you know, it's right. Like this isn't just a flyer, or if it was, we wouldn't be here right now, right? So a lot of people had all alluded to it a little bit, but how did people react around you? So something, I know a lot of you in here, you know, you felt some sort of personal attachment, or you researched, you learned, you had friends. But when you try to explain it to others, how do they react?
Like when I first saw this flyer, so my first reaction was kind of someone else mentioned that there's going to be desensitization. We are exposed to so much racism, we see so many microaggressions that we learn to just brush them off, keep going, because we focus on it and we go crazy. There's too much of it. There's like constant attacks on your identity, on who you are, and what you're doing. So I saw this flyer and it was just another echoing reminder of that. There was a blackface incident earlier, and I'm used to knowing that UF is not a safe place for minorities. I'm used to seeing that we are always going to be treated as others. So with that mindset, like I was really glad to see that the forum were doing something about it, right? One of my friends shared this photo, and on it, the first comment was, what's the big deal? Like, why are you contacting the police? That's like such a waste of resources. Like, I don't see why you guys are getting so upset over a flyer. It's just a dumb joke. And I was so upset by that I just sat there and cried because, like, people don't even understand how serious this is. This is not a joke. This is not just like a small little thing that you can keep brushing away. When you do that, you keep making it okay to keep saying these kinds of things and keep erasing identity for people around you. And, like, I'm glad to see so much diversity here at this event today, but how are we going to go beyond this? How are we going to actually reach those populations? Because even before at UF, we had that forum for the blackface incident, and we had another blackface incident after that. So it's like, is actual change being implemented from this? What can we do? How can we reach these people that think it's okay? And that's what I really want to get out of this, is I want us to form a solution to reach the student body in general, and not to make a very dismissive statement or to accept a blanket apology, which is completely has no emotion behind it or no real sincerity. I want to know who did this, and I want them to understand why it was wrong. I don't want them to apologize. I want them to really understand it and explain it when someone else makes a dumb joke. Hey, that's actually not funny at all. That's actually really, really hurtful to someone. I just want people to start understanding that.
And I think that's, you know, that's definitely a brave sentiment, because a lot of times when we experience those angers, right, we want to just like, I want them out, I want them done, but, you know, I commend you for having that foresight to say, like, I want to work with them. I want them to know that it's wrong in the future. I don't want to scare them off, so, you know, thank you for sharing that.
Okay, so I think I can relate to like a lot of people in this room, but when I was growing up, I went to like a high school that was like majority white population, and I also played like a really like majority white sport. And so coming to UF, I wasn't really used to like being around Asian people, and so like when this happened, like I think it just reminded me. Okay, so like when I used to hang out with my friends, like they used to make like Asian jokes and stuff, and like I would just look at them and be like, that's rude. But then they're just like, no, it's okay. Like I don't associate you as like being Asian, and I'm just like, why? But I guess like this just kind of like reminded me of that whole situation of like, do I associate myself with this? But I don't know. I'm really glad we're doing this forum because it's like.
That's an interesting comment. They say, I don't associate you as Asian.
Yeah, like
they give a reason as to why.
I mean, not really. They're just like, no, Sarah, you're not Asian. And I'm like, yes, I am. Like 100%. And they just, I don't know. They just said that they don't see me as like an Asian person.
And I think, you know, what you all are saying, that there's a lot of, like, you know, great sentiments and a lot. I know you all have thought about this a lot. I know it's only been 2 days, right? So I think, you know, going back, you know, what do you want to see happen? What are some of the things that you think should happen? You know, whether it's you know, the people who perpetrated this, or what are some of the things that you want to see happen here at, you know, UF?
Someone, I can't remember who it was, that spoke said that UF, like the top president, whoever should address this. It's like it's so great to see like the groups addressing it, but like officially UF should. And I think like this has made me think a lot about like jokes I've made in the past, or like accidentally like making an assumption about someone because of their race, and like you can't change. And it's like you said, like it's not just saying, oh, I'm sorry, or oh, I don't see you as your race. It's recognizing and not apologizing for it, or not justifying ignorance and not justifying racism. So I think if UF were to, like, the topmost people were to, like, address this, that like, and someone else said, like, well, how are we going to reach those communities that think this is funny or think this is okay, and maybe that would do it. Like, as sad as it is, like, I don't know, like, I would like to think that it would be enough just for, like, students to talk about it, but it almost seems like it has to become an official thing.
And that's an important part. Like, there's just something more empowering about seeing it being done on an institutional level that makes it seem like the work is actually, like, happening. What else? What are some other, yes, sir?
I think Amar raised a good point in that we need to reach all the student body. And I mean, obviously some of these incidents, you can identify the people that are perpetuating these jokes and stereotypes, such as the blackface incident and some other ones that happened. But in this case, it's even more difficult because we don't even know who it is. And I think it does need to come from the institution. The institution itself needs to take a stand. So I'm thinking, we have this What's a Good Life class, these classes that require freshmen. And most of the freshmen I talk to don't get anything out of it. I didn't have to take it because I came the year before. But why are we not requiring a diversity class? Why are we not requiring a class that teaches them this from the start in this university? So we don't see things like this. I think it needs to come from the institution. I think it needs to affect the entire student body. We have such awesome resources on campus, but seriously, there's so many students that are never going to use them, that are never going to come to these types of meetings. And like, we have things such as leadership, MCDA, but we can't send the entire school in leadership. We can't send them all to MCDA's office.
Yeah.
So why don't we require a class that actually teaches them something about our school, about our society as a whole?
Oh, definitely.
And I guess I wanted to harp on what Sebastian said, because I feel like we've been talking, Sebastian and I have been talking about this in September about, like, a diversity requirement among the University of Florida. And given that, you know, UF wants to be a top 10 public university, I feel like it's one of the steps that we have to take, especially given that we're in the South and given how, you know, how predominant the issue might really be and how rare the resources are and how much more we need to tap into them. But I guess, yes.
Sorry, can you say, like, diversity requirement, like, what do you mean? Because there is a diversity requirement as our gen ed, but I took, like, international relations, so it doesn't really, like, address this issue per se. So when you say diversity, like, what do you mean exactly?
I guess, and Sebastian can pitch in as well.
Sorry. I guess what I was kind of thinking is, I think the diversity requirement, like you're saying right now, is there's so many classes you can take. And a lot of them don't really correlate the way we need them to directly affect our campus climate and our society. So I personally think we should focus on having a diversity class that kind of covers some of the issues that aren't talked about, such as what are microaggressions, what are some examples of them, how do we see these different prejudices and racism, how do we recognize our own privilege, and recognize other people's privilege where we lack, depending on our identity. So I think maybe a class on identity and intersections of identities, I feel like maybe that would be more helpful. I think also the diversity requirement, it is multiple classes that you can take. And I think in comparison to, like, What's a Good Life, where everybody has to take that specific class. Like, every freshman that comes in and takes AASU in 2005. Like, having to take this specific diversity class, every single person.
Going off of that, not to attack, like, What is a Good Life, but like, that class is more with those overarching philosophies and stuff, which are important, but I think they go over more people's heads. And if it was more focused on stuff like here and now, visceral, like in America, in the South right now, like Asian American studies, African American studies, like diversity studies like that in the class, and not just general ethics and general old philosophies. I think that, like, everyone being required to take that, those things are down to earth and people can understand those. They just need to be told.
I think given, like, how big University of Florida is, how many classes there are offered, like a great introduction towards what, you know, what there is already to offer is, like, preview. So you'd be like, you know, if you didn't know, we have an Asian American Studies program, Latino Studies program. These multicultural organizations exist if you're interested in them.
So having, like, more of, like, kind of a visibility at, like, things like previews, so that students come in, they know it's there. Yeah, definitely. And I think that those are really cool things, right? But then I want to bring it back real quick, because these are things that happen externally to us. It still doesn't address some of those personal parts, right? All these things can happen, but a lot of us probably still feel offended. A lot of us probably still feel scared. A lot of us probably, still feel confused about what it is that we're supposed to do. So what can we do? What are some things that maybe you have done or that you've done to try to cope and has made you feel like you're probably handling this situation, or you have a way that you're going to handle the situation that does better the people around you and does get rid of, or doesn't get rid of, but it does address that kind of that pain that we felt.
One of the things that I really like to talk to, and this is mostly for my friends who maybe I don't share my views, or I'll just say it, like, who are white, who are maybe conservative, who do tell me like, why do this, why talk about this instead, or things like that. I really just try to harp on like not attacking. That is, especially my friends who are white and who are sympathetic, because I personally can't understand what it must feel like to be in that position because I'm not white. But I can sort of try to sympathize and see like, oh, it must feel bad to constantly having to try to defend yourself and like constantly be like, I'm not racist or I'm not sexist or those things, but really try to get an understanding, and especially those who maybe are ignorant and who don't understand why it hurts us, to explain, and not in an accusatory way, because then that once again just creates a sharp contrast and creates a divide. Like explain like how it affects not just us, but how it affects the individuals, how it affects them, how it affects everyone, and why from a personal standpoint it's offensive, and it's not. And like, it's sort of like what's happening because of our day and age. There's this fatigue almost of discussion, and people think that our media just over inundates with us with it, talking about race issues and things that happen. But I think that it's important to maintain an open dialogue and explain why, like maybe it's from personal anecdotes or from an institutional standpoint, why it's a negative thing, why it affects every single person in an adverse way.
Anybody want to add to that?
Somewhat tied into the suggestion that you just made about that as someone with white privilege and other people that have white privilege, or anybody that doesn't identify as Asian, but with anybody that has privileges over a minority, I think it's important to educate ourselves and educate our friends. So like one girl mentioned that she looked it up because she wasn't aware, and she asked. I would hope that then going forward, if you hear something that's inappropriate or someone mentioned jokes that they've made in the past that they understand isn't appropriate, like calling people out, because especially when you have privilege to not be the person in the butt of the joke, it gives you an offensive amount of power because you're not prejudiced by your own passions for it. So as an ally, it's really important when you see anything that's inappropriate to call it out.
Definitely. So I want to take a pause for a moment. I know we have a lot more to discuss, but I know Dave has to go to another meeting. He's got some stuff that he's got to do. But I know he definitely wanted to. He's had the ability to listen to some of the things that you've had to say, and we've had a long talk yesterday about what this means for the community, what we need to do. So if you'd like to answer some of the questions or make the presentation, and you all have the opportunity to ask him any questions that you feel.
First of all, how about Alex? The first part of anything, I think, is communication. And the fact that we came together now, and it was so important. I think it's critical. Everything moved very fast. And I was just talking to our great officer here from UPD here in a minute that all of this really, you got first report last night to UPD. So to come together in 48 hours for some of you it's more like 24 hours, and some of you are like 12 hours, and it depends on when you caught up with this. So I think it's important. I think if we would have gone away and had spring break, and this thing would have gotten watered down a little bit. And I think it's important right now when things are sharp and you want to express your anger, and you just don't let it sit there inside of you and cause you further damage. So I think it's important. The other thing I'd like to tell you, student affairs. There's a lot. This university is so big. Student affairs is the only division in this university that begins with the word student. And that's what we're all about. So The people here who are with you from student affairs, so LB in the back, Mary Kay, Alex, and all of us who work in this division. This is not only our job, this is our career, this is our life. It's helping students, and we try in so many ways to do that. So there are different levels in what we do. One is the very critical thing that people don't talk about a lot. So all the work that's done in the Counseling Center. The truth is, out of 50,000 students, about 5,000 students will seek counseling. So we have a great organization of counselors and psychologists there to help. Because everybody has tough times at some point going through school. But at any one year, we'll have 10% of the student body that actually presents themselves to the Counseling Center and say, I really need some support. And so I'm proud we're able to do that. It's one of the busiest, if not the busiest, counseling center in the country. And I think it's because we try to tell everybody, hey, we're here for you. And hopefully it's a non-threatening thing. The other thing, on the far end of things, we have teams that are put together for really critical student issues, students who are thinking about harming themselves and other very serious problems. So we've had teams organized for that for a long time. So let me start off with one thing that we have decided to do. So in answer to some of your questions, one of the things that we have already created, and we're doing the training for ourselves, is to create a bias response team for the university. And this is in large measure to Mary Kay. Dr. Carradine is the one who led that initiative and got the resources together to make that team happen, along with a lot of the people in the room, including LB and others. And I think it's important because some of the comments that you just made, what I heard was like, how do people not understand this? You know, this is racism on one end, and on another end, it's just stupidity. It's just frustrating that it's so stupid, and we're still having these kinds of things come up on a campus that prides itself in having such great students here. And it is disappointing. And we don't know who did this. That's the other frustrating thing. So I think come together and find out how you feel collectively and individually, because everybody's an individual on this campus. But, we don't know if this is one person with a sick sense of humor, or is it a group of people? I really learned something today. We didn't know that there was a poster in Ranch Union. So, how many posters do we think? Do we know? Do we know?
I think that's, if you count the rights, that's probably 8 or 9 at this point.
8 or 9? And there may have been more. I mean, people may have torn these things down when they saw them, and there may have been 20. So that's kind of interesting to know that it wasn't just located around a little hall. And I don't know if people moved them there or what, but did anybody else see any other places?
I didn't see it personally, but I know that one of my classmates said that she saw one on the tables at Burlington.
Yeah, true.
But when I went there, I guess they were like saying that.
Okay. Well, maybe some people were helping us, and we omitted some things, we don't know who they are. But I think, first of all, hang on. Not everybody is a racist, and don't go there. This is a great campus. We have got a great thing going on. The fact that we can come together and do this is really important, and I'm very pleased that you have asked me to be here today. And it was really important for me to hear you, and there's some really good thoughts out there. So first of all, let me say, I'll take back your comments to the provost. I don't control classes that are taught. But I will take those comments back about if there were more of a common core in diversity. I know that diversity requirements there, but we've talked about that our staff, you can communicate or anything that counts towards the diversity credit, right? So I think people a lot of times look for the path of least resistance so that it doesn't interfere with their course of study, because what they really want to do is be a journalist or be a doctor or be an engineer or whatever it is. And so I think it's a little too easy, and maybe so unstructured in a way to try to encourage people to do that in a number of ways. It probably has been watered down, so it's not important. say, let's add another course to the curriculum. I don't know if you've seen the war that's going on with our faculty and trying to create a core curriculum. We're trying to do something that no other university of our size and type in America is doing, and that is to go back and create a core curriculum so that people have a common shared idea of what it is to become an educated person. I think this thought fits right into that. But they are having a monstrous debate among our faculty right now about what that means, because most schools who are aspiring to be the kind of school we are, be a major research university, actually are doing the opposite. They don't want anybody to tell any one of the colleges what they have to do because they all have so many requirements we're trying to do because we're trying to be better than Stanford or Berkeley or wherever we want to talk about. But hold on. I mean, if you know what I personally think, I think if we're going to have educated people, if we're going to have people who are going to be leaders in our society, that these are the topics that we should talk about. And so, not only here, but beyond. We're going to take your comments back. See Mary Kay's typing like crazy over there. Get everything down, thank you. And we'll take this back as a staff. We already did that too. We found out about this. My staff meeting happens every week, and all the directors of all the different departments within student affairs. We represent 600 people that work here. Everybody from the housekeepers that clean the rooms and the residence halls to the dean of students. And so the leaders all came together yesterday, and we had a discussion about this incident. And at that point, Alex and I had not met, so I didn't know that I had the opportunity to come hear you until now. So first of all, know that we're here for you. The whole idea of having departments, especially a Pacific Island office, and the fact that multicultural diversity affairs is represented in an assistant vice president level on this campus and reports directly to me, I think it's important for you to know. We have elevated, I think, what we do to a very high level within our organization to stay in touch. So the other thing is, if you're looking for me to say, I'm going to give you some guarantee this is not going to happen, then you can just discredit anything I said up on that, because I can't do that any more than you can do it. We can't change everybody in this country or in this world. We can change ourselves. We can control who we are, and we can do a better job at communication as a university, and we can advance ideas about what would it mean to strengthen that diversity core so that we teach people. But we're still going to have people who do idiotic things. It's the beginning of time. I don't think the world has figured out what to do about that. So the question is, what can we do? Because in the end, we only control ourselves. And I'm in a position as vice president that I have access to the president's cabinet and to the president, and I can certainly express things. And you still have another part of this conversation to go ahead and have today. And I know that we'll record what that is and see what we can work together to do. Let's not be this the whole time we get together. And this will be a really good test for the bias response team to figure out how we can work together to try to eliminate this from who we are as a people. So I'm here to listen to you and also receive your questions and comments. Thoughts?
Okay, you mentioned that there is a massive debate between the powers that be and deciding what core classes should be mandated for your students. Is there a way that students are able to provide our input? Is there a forum or a way that we can discuss our own opinions as to what we feel is a very good part of knowledge?
Sure.
I'm assuming that there's meetings that you guys have and meet together. So is there a meeting that's open to the students?
The curriculum, what's in the curriculum, really goes to the faculty senate and the provost of the university. That's really not, they don't let students here to do that. But that's the right of it.
So, just write letters to the provost or?
first of all, get your thoughts together. And I think we've got a couple of good ideas. And I think what I heard, I mean, you'll decide, but what I heard was the diversity requirement is not strong enough, and it's not put in enough, and it's not down to earth enough that it matters. And so, can there be some structure in first of all that requirement? And if so, is there, it would be easier, in my opinion, if you took an existing course. So if it's First Year Florida, if it's the Good Life, if it's something that's already there, to put that component in it, rather than to go through creation of a new course, then you got to get back to the center to approve it and all of that.
So in order to restructure the course, we still go through the provost. So I know currently what's Good Life classes not have core curriculum across the board. It very much depends on who's teaching specifically.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So how do we go about stating?
Well, I think you state the problem and let them don't try to figure out the solution, because it's going to be, when you come back in a creative way that he can impact, that you and I can impact. But I think what you've got to do is through the faculty chain, which would be starting with the faculty senate and then the provost. That's a provost.
I'm just having trouble understanding what the exact avenue should be called.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, straight to the provost. Okay.
So first, I'd like to thank you so much for getting on stage, speaking your thoughts, and talking about the work you're doing, along with the other student first personnel. But something that I kind of heard as we're speaking is not everyone is a racist. And while I agree with that statement, I think that we often focus on that not everyone is a racist, and that tends to kind of invalidate people's feelings. Because we're talking now kind of a culture. So not just being Victoria, but the United States, right? So when we say not everyone, so when we say not everyone is a racist, we're kind of ignoring okay, so how do people learn racism? It's with the relationships, with the institutions. So I just want to make sure that we're always being intentional with the way we kind of frame this conversation. Because as a student, I've been here for 4 years, and I can say that I've met amazing.
You have always
yeah. But as my friend Amara said, we come to normalize these microaggressions, and when we normalize that, that's when we start relying on well, not everyone is a racist. So I just wanted to say that. But
sure.
That's something I've always been struggling with.
Thanks for that. That's not what I meant. What I heard was an element of fear. Is everybody looking at me and thinking they're seeing me through the lens of who I am and my background and makeup? And not that they're both no, I want to minimize this, and that's why we are all here today, and that's why we are sitting in this valuable time. So I don't want to detract from that. Wait a second, you first and Dave.
So I do apologize. I know there's a lot you all want to ask, and I know Dave Patzer, but I also want to be respectful of people's time. We also do have UFPD to also speak. I know there's a lot of things that we've got to do. I know some of you all might have classes at Group 1. You continue, to let me know, or let Dave Patzer know what your thoughts are. We're definitely trying to do that. I also want to make sure we have time for Officer Cashinova to speak. So, I want to.
Can I take 2 more?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I would like to tell you, what I'd like to do, Mary, I'd like for you to get Sarah to help us with this. But I'd like those statements on our website, our student affairs website, and get that done before we get out of here, so that we directly respond to this issue and support you in that way. So, I will sign it. So, anyway.
Thank you for speaking, and I don't mean any disrespect like this, but I need to challenge something you said.
Sure.
And that is your message that we can only change ourselves. On the one hand, I completely agree with you. That is absolutely accurate. But we are students. You're right. We can only change ourselves. You just told us exactly how close you are to the president, what your positions are. So when someone commits a crime, we don't say we can only challenge ourselves. We put that person in prison. And that message that I'm saying is, for us to sit here and say we can only challenge ourselves, it's a positive one, and it's one that's necessary, but that's not the appropriate response when we're harmed. When people are actively harmed at our university, we in the community need to do something that is more than, we can only challenge ourselves, we can only change ourselves.
Let's begin with ourselves, and let's take responsibility for ourselves. I think you're doing that by being today. I guess we're sharing that with you. That's why I'm here today. So I think, and Alex has reached out, I don't know, but he reached out the second time to say, why don't you come to meet with me wherever you are, and let you and I sit down and talk and understand a little more about it. We talked about that yesterday. I don't know that they'll have, whoever this is, I don't know if they'll have the courage to do that, or if they'll just drop out and be anonymous. And so how do you know, we can't do something that person until we know what it is, or at least understand, or then decide what's the appropriate response.
Well, the main concern isn't the person who did this, because to be completely honest, that person doesn't matter. What matters is the response that we community, and not just we APIA, but we UF has a response. That is that this is absolutely not okay.
Yeah.
And the message is that, you know, we're going to be together, and we can have an open discussion, and not about harming whoever like made this decision, a poor one, obviously, but to, you know, emphasize the fact that we need to create a culture in which that this is absolutely not acceptable, and the best appropriate response isn't a bureaucratic message stating, you know, some sort of like weak apology saying like this isn't okay, but someone with a passionate response, the level of which that I myself and the we students are saying to you that no, this is not acceptable. And I think that needs to be what's happening, not from the APIA, but from the rest of student affairs, for example. And I thank you for having that statement up, because you know, like that's a good first step.
Thanks. Hey, I hope we always can come together like the code of safety here and exchange ideas, because that's the only way we grow.
So I want to pause there. I want to continue on the conversation. And Officer Casanova, so that's time. The teacher that's teaching the next class in here is actually waiting to start in like the next 2 minutes. So if there is a space for us outside, I know the weather is nice. We can still continue this conversation if you have time. I know if you have class, you know, please go there. You know, so we'll try to find a space outside and try to continue.